Merker. This is episode 4 of the People Solving Impossible Puzzles podcast. And I got my friend, Computer Regalica character here. But without further ado, we're going to jump right into it. We have a rabbi here today. We have a wise man. He's ordained. It's not a Fugazi. He is also a businessman. He has his own company. He is also a rabbinical active teacher trainer. I will not wait. We will not waste another second. Avrohom Jax, Rabbi, tell us all about yourself.
Well, thank you so much, Mike. I'm so excited to have this conversation. I have a pretty broad resume. I think you touched on a few things over there. So I kind of feel like I straddle two worlds, the world of spirituality, of Judaism. I'm a rabbi by training, by passion. And I also am very passionate and keen about learning everything I can about business and helping business owners grow their business. I like to say that I help people grow like crazy without going crazy. So there's two components there.
Tell us.
First is,
yeah.
What's that?
Tell us all about it. Yeah. Amazing.
Sure. With pleasure. So basically, the way that I was taught in business school when I got my MBA, they said that businesses, we had a professor that said that businesses have basically one of two problems. There are only two problems in business. One problem is called a demand constraint, and the other problem is called a supply constraint. So what is a demand constraint? A demand constraint means you don't have enough customers. You don't have enough revenue. And therefore, you need to create demand for your product or your service. Then once you've figured that out, you're going to switch to the other problem, which is a supply constraint. And what is a supply constraint? A supply constraint means you don't have enough resources to be able to serve your customers and to deliver the product at the scale that you are now experiencing. So, and people bounce between those two. If you solve a supply constraint, in other words, somehow you create more capacity, you're going to create for yourself a demand constraint. Then when you switch gears and you get into the demand constraint side of things, you're going to then have a lot of business. You're going to need to produce for that business, to provide for your customers. And so you're going to move back and forth between those two problems. So I help people grow like crazy. I address the demand constraint through things like marketing strategy, sales funnels, how to get sales, differentiation. That's a huge thing. Once you look different from your competitors, wow, then you have all the demand that you could possibly wish for, as long as you have product market fit. So I help people with that side of it. And then I also help people with the operations, implementing AI, automation, offshoring, and all of the kind of operational side of things, which help you not go crazy as you grow your business like crazy. So that's pretty much what I do every single day.
Amazing. And if you are you only working with like one type of client? Could you maybe rattle off all the not the names, but the client, the verticals they're in, the spaces they're in, as you're able to do so much in one day? It blows my mind.
Yeah, it blows my mind too. When I look at my customer list and the kind of industries that they're in, it's so broad. And I think, so typically I work with companies that are doing 2 to 5 million and over. That's the sweet spot. So I really feel like I can bring value to those customers, and but really in terms of verticals, they cross all the verticals, because all companies have those two problems that I solve. So I have a law firm that's a client of mine. I have a digital marketing agency that is a client of mine. I have a person who has medical clinics in the United States. I have people who are who are in the windows and doors business and their space, manufacturing and installing. So it's really a gamut of a tremendous amount, a few AI startups in there as well, which I help. I have a bit of a product background, so for several years I worked in the financial industry as a product manager. So I understand product, I understand go-to-market strategy, bringing products to the market, and I have a few startup clients that I work with on that. But it keeps me always. I'm never bored.
You're never bored, and you love a good challenge. Why? Why do you always challenge yourself so much?
That's an awesome question. Why would I always challenge myself so much? So obviously, as a business owner myself, I have experienced challenges, and I know what business owners go through, and it's very lonely. You know, to be an entrepreneur can be an extremely lonely experience, and I went through that. I went through the anxiety. I went through all of the problems, demand problems, supply problems, the whole gamut. And I know that when you scale you can scale yourself through almost any problem that a business faces. So I want to just be there for other entrepreneurs, for them to know that they're not alone, and that they are that there are solutions to the problems that they're having, and they are not the first people that are experiencing those problems. And then when you solve it, I had a couple of months ago, one of my clients, I've been working for several years with him, and he called me up and he said, and I encourage my clients to call me as much as they want to brainstorm if they have issues and stuff. So he calls me, and I figure it's just another brainstorm. He said, no, this call is different. This call is to say thank you. Because do you remember when we started working, how anxious I was, how difficult my business was, how I detested getting up in the morning and going to work, and it was so difficult for me. And look where we are today. We've assembled an incredible team. Our revenue is up. I'm enjoying the business. I mean, I'm enjoying my role in the business. It's playing to my strengths. And he said, it's all thanks to you. And I said, no, it's thanks to you and the hard work that you've done. All I was there was to guide you, encourage you, hold you accountable sometimes, but you did the work. But you cannot believe how good it felt to get that call from me. When I got that call, I'm like, that's why I do this. So to answer your question, long answer, the reason that I enjoy solving problems is because I've been there, done that. I have the T-shirt, and now I want to help other people to get out of those problematic areas of the business in a way that's far less painful than my personal experience was.
Amazing. Oh, this is just mind-boggling. And surely you're working 24/7 and you're not married and you don't have kids, because you would never have time for that, and you have no time to have any religion in your life. Surely you're just a workaholic, right? You have no wife, no kids, no rabbinical lessons, of course, right?
Of course, I do have all the above. So workaholic, probably guilty as charged, although I would tell you to do as I say, not as I do. In other words, like I do an exercise with my clients right at the beginning of the year. We take a calendar and we block off 155 days where they are not allowed to work in the year. So that means they're not allowed to get one email. They're not allowed to get one phone call from the business. They're not allowed to do anything that is business related on those 155 days. Now that sounds a lot, but remember, there's about 100 of those days are weekends, so those are easy to block off. And then there are other, I encourage them to go on vacation and replenish and recover. Elite athletes know that it is more important to recover than the training that they do. The recovery is more important. So that's what I tell people to do. That's not what I do myself. That's just what I preach. What I do myself, I have 7 kids. I have an amazing, amazing wife, which enables everything that I do. It all comes from her. I would not be able to do a tenth of what I accomplished if it weren't for her encouragement and support. So absolutely have all the above. I'm also very active in the rabbinic world as well. So I try and straddle both of those. So as I said, I'm the workaholic that you should not be. This is the example. This is the before picture. I'm the before picture, and I help my clients get to the after picture. But one day maybe I'll take my own advice.
Incredible, incredible. Oh, this is so much to unpack in the little time we have. Is it true that on a Saturday morning or afternoon you are not using your phone? What is I do not believe you. Prove it.
Oh yeah, that's a strong. I will never violate that. Never have, and never will. It is my digital Sabbath, as well as my spiritual Sabbath. And I know this is becoming pretty popular. The late great Charlie Kirk wrote a book about how he unplugged from the digital world one day a week. So he had his digital Sabbath, and you could not reach Charlie Kirk on that day. It was a day for family. It was a day for reflection, for spirituality. And that book was published posthumously. Unfortunately, he was working on the book when he was assassinated. So it's published posthumously, but I see that President Trump has also declared this month that we're recording this as Jewish Heritage Month, and he is encouraging Americans of all faith to have a digital Sabbath, to unplug and to connect to some deeper values. And of course, in the Jewish religion, that is a central part of our practice, is to observe the Sabbath. And one of the things that we are required to refrain from doing is interacting with the world in a creative way. So the Sabbath is the day when we step back and we say, this is the time, this reminds us of the time when God created the world, where he created the world, the heavens and the earth, in 6 days. And on the 7th day, he rested, whatever that means about God resting. But what it means for us is that we should rest. In other words, 6 days of the week, God requires us to improve the world around us, to impact the world around us. One day a week, we step back so that we don't think that we are the creator. We are co-creators with God, but we are not the creator. So one day a week, we have to step back from our involvement in the world, from our ability to change the world, and we have to make that day, that has to be our time for retrospection, for understanding that there's a real creator of the world, and to provide us with all our capabilities and all our talents and all our abilities. So that is why my Sabbath is very, very strict. There is no phone. I have a friend, a schoolmate, actually, a fellow schoolmate, and he was invited by Microsoft to speak at a Microsoft event. And the event was on Saturday. And of course, he wouldn't, he's an observant Jew, he wouldn't speak on the Saturday. And apparently this got up to Bill Gates himself. And Bill Gates offered my friend $1 million to give one keynote speech on the Sabbath. And my friend refused. And then...
Go on, say it.
Bill Gates
said,
okay, so name your price. We want you. We need you. Everybody has a price. What is your price? And Bill Gates at that time was the wealthiest man in the world. So he could offer pretty much any price. And my friend said no. And that is something that is sacrosanct, that there are no religious Jews that I know that would violate their Sabbath for any money or any reason in the world.
Amazing. Okay. Getting deeper into this, is it true that in the middle of the day, let's call it mincha or afternoon prayer, you are pausing from work where you could be
Yeah.
making real guilt, dead queens, dead presidents, Benjamin Franklin's. Is it true you will stop for 15 or 20 minutes? That's crazy talk. Are you insane? Is that true?
Yes, I am insane and I am
Mm.
crazy, but not because I'm pausing in the middle of the day to offer the afternoon prayers. So Mincha, the afternoon prayers, is the most difficult prayer service. So Orthodox people have 3 prayer services every day. There's a morning prayer service, which is just beautiful. I mean, it just starts the day on such a beautiful, majestic way. It is no problem at all. I'm a morning person. I wake up very early every morning, and it is my best, most focused, most productive time. And then when I go to the prayer services, it's just so easy. It's so aligned with who I am. I have no problem with that. The evening service is also an easy one. For me, the day has winded down already. I'm preparing for bed. The evening services kind of prepare me, and these are just the morning service is the longest of the services, but the afternoon and evening service are 15-minute services. And when I do that's easy. The middle of the day, that afternoon service, that is the hardest one. But like I tell my clients, the things that are hard are often the most valuable. And I think that when we stop our day and we devote 15 minutes, which is not an incredibly long amount of time, but we devote that to our Creator, we devote that to God, I think God responds by saying, well, you broke your nature. You were traveling along a certain path. You were deep in earning those dead queens and dead presidents, and you stopped to spend some time with me. So therefore, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to suspend my nature as well, because you suspended your nature, and because you suspended the thing that you wanted to do, that you went out of your comfort zone. God says, I'll suspend my nature. And you know what that's called when God suspends his nature? It's called a miracle. And so God says,
oh yeah, amen. Oh yeah.
The most difficult things for me to do are, I think, the ones that get me the most brownie points with the guy upstairs.
You're talking here of a religious nature. Are you bringing your beliefs into your business and into the client's businesses? Is that a good way to operate?
Absolutely. So a lot of what I do, one of the things that I will do with every client right in the beginning of the mandate is we'll goal set, right? Because if you don't set the destination on your GPS, then how are you going to get there? What I think it was Yogi Berra said, if you don't know where you're going, you're probably not going to get there.
Amazing. And
I think that's the quote. I may have butchered it, but it's something along those lines.
I gotta ask.
But anyway.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go on. Continue the thought.
So
yes.
What I was saying is that you need a goal set, right? In business, you have to have goals. You have to have what are called BHAGs. Those are big, hairy, audacious goals. Those multi-year, multi-decade in some point, like where you want to be in 10-year time goals, that are totally audacious, that are very, very ambitious. But then you also need annual goals. And I'm a big fan in having quarterly goals. I think 3 months is a really good time span to set a goal. And then you work backwards. So once you have a 3-month goal, where you want to be in 3 months' time, work backwards. Go back 1 month, go back a second month, go back a third month, and then you know what you need to do in month 1 ahead of you, month 2 and 3. Then you divide that into weeks and then that into days. So obviously goal setting is essential to succeeding in pretty much everything, but certainly in business. So, however, I do goal setting a little bit different. I start with values. We need to tease out your values because I want at least your BHAG, your very audacious goal, needs to be aligned with your values. Because if there's alignment with your values, with your deep purpose and your why, then you're going to have a greater chance of hitting those goals. So therefore, I'm telling people at the beginning of our goal setting session, let's take a step back and let's tease out, and I have certain method, how I tease out what are the deepest values, the deepest why that you have in your soul. And very often it's going to be a spiritual why that comes out. Obviously, because I'm a religious Jew, ethics, morality is also non-negotiable for me. That is an absolute red line. So, and I use my study of Judaism to inform and inspire the ethical standards that I set for myself and for my clients in how to deal with people ethically, how to deal with clients in an ethical manner. And that is a very, very important part of my worldview and mentality, and therefore and mindset, and therefore it becomes the mindset of my clients as well.
Amazing.
So yeah, it is all informed by my values. So my values inform how I do everything.
And a future client, a potential client, someone who's watching this in New York, in Florida, in Toronto, in Montreal, in Vancouver, but they don't know, they cannot read the Hebrew alphabet. They haven't been to synagogue since their bar mitzvah. Are they allowed to hire you to come in to save their business, to heal their business? They may not know where to begin.
Absolutely. So many of my clients are not Jewish, and many of my clients are Jewish, but not really knowledgeable about their Jewish heritage. That is not a prerequisite at all for what I do. I have an MBA, which I got from a non-Jewish institution, and there's so a lot of my training is from the non-Jew. I'm very curious about everything in life, and one of the things I do is I read a non-fiction, mostly business book every week.
Which book are you reading this week, and why?
So I was hoping you wouldn't ask me that question, because I'm not going to finish this book in 1 week. No way. It's an autobiography of Lincoln. It's called Lincoln, and it is thousands of pages. So this is probably going to take me more than a week. But at the same time, I just so that I do finish one book this week, I've just finishing. I have like about 4 or 5% left, according to my Kindle, of a book called Beyond the Hammer, which is a wonderful business book. Wonderful. It starts off, half of it is a parable about this person who was really drowning, and I could really recognize a lot of my clients in the beginning of this parable, and then in the end he says the pillars of management. And because I'm very curious about management and how we can get the best from people, and draw out the best from people who work in our organizations. So I was very interested to see what this person had to say, and it's a marvelous book. So I'll finish that book. That'll be my one book that I'll finish this week. I'll start another book next week also, but at the same time I'm reading Lincoln. That's probably going to take me a couple of months to finish, but it's fascinating. I mean, it is absolutely fascinating.
Why? Lincoln? Why? What about Lincoln? Why?
Because politics is very interesting, to say the least. I know that there's some people who are, and I see why this is the case, are allergic to politics. I am fascinated by politics, but specifically what I'm fascinated by, one thing in politics that fascinates me is, why do certain political parties, let's say conservatives and liberals, Republicans and Democrats, Liberal and Labor in Australia, where I lived for a few years, why do they coalesce around certain values and certain opinions? So, for example, as an example, why is a Republican or a conservative, and really wherever you go almost in the world, you'll see Republicans and conservatives are pro-gun ownership, they are anti-abortion, and they have very defined ideas around immigration. So that's on the one hand. And then if you go and you look at more liberal, progressive political parties in the world, they'll also coalesce around a certain set of ideals, values, and they'll be activists for their values. Now, why is that the case? Why is what is is there something fundamental underlying that creates, let's say a left and a right, a conservative and a progressive party, regardless of, and there are differences, of course, in each country between these, but so this fascinates me. And so I was reading about Lincoln because I think he's a very inspiring person. He went through tremendous challenges in his life, tremendous deaths of loved ones, failed attempts at political office, business that went bankrupt. I mean, the amount of difficulty that he had, and then he was thrust into the political spotlight at a point which was probably one of the most important points in American history, which is, the Civil War, basically. And without any real, he did have a little bit of experience, like 2 months of experience as a soldier, but no real military experience. And yet he led the Northern forces to victory in the Civil War. I think just the resilience, the grit, the realness of a person who's in there in the trenches, who's suffered. He did not live a perfect life, and there's so much that he wrote in his diaries, etc. So we know so much about him. I mean, as I said, this book is thousands of pages, and we know so much about him, and it's so inspirational to me to see other people who've gone through such difficulty and yet been able to have the grit and the resilience to pull themselves out of their challenges and rise above their challenge and be victorious, and then live extraordinary lives and change the lives of so many millions and millions, hundreds of millions of people. I mean, so very, very inspiring.
Amazing. And I'm taking this in. You're reading a book a week, and you're running a large go-to-market company with a dozen or more clients, and you're giving lectures at the synagogue, and I'm one of your victims of wisdom, shall we say, or pupils. And at the same time, did I hear the word yore the other day? What is that all about? Yore, that sounds like a Chinese novel
and
or something.
Yadin. So when I was young and a lot less gray, I got rabbinic ordination. So rabbinic ordination is it's post secondary school. You go to a rabbinic institution, you study, and it's very, very deep study. So I like to say that the first rabbinic ordination that I received is called Yora. That's like, let's say, the equivalent of having a master's degree in some other subject. And then I continued studying, and I achieved Yadin. Yadin means it literally means the ability to judge. So it's being a judge in a rabbinic court, and that's kind of the next stage that I went to in my study of Torah and Jewish literature. And that is, I have both of those rabbinic ordinations, and I don't get to use them much in my daily life, but certainly from the ethics standpoint that I spoke about before, the Yadin is very, very helpful because it discusses, everything from tort to monetary issues, disputes, and evidence, and the role of the judge, which is very interesting in a Jewish court. So it's a fascinating study, and I do wish I had more opportunity to actually practice that side of it. But as you already discovered, my my schedule is quite full.
Your schedule's so full. How do you fit in 8 hours of TikTok and Netflix and videos and what's going on at the Met Gala and what's going on in San Francisco? How do you make sure
And
to fit in
I'm
eight
crazy.
hours of TikTok every day to fulfill your soul?
And crazy cats, don't forget chasing a laser pointer, because that is really cool. Yeah, no, it's prioritization. You have to prioritize looking at properties in Belize, because who knows, you might ever go there and want to buy a property. So you go down that rabbit hole. Yeah, so I'm writing my second book. I'll
Yes.
talk to you about the first book in a moment. But the second book is almost ready to go to the editors for them to rip it apart and be brutal. But the new book, which is hopefully going to come out this year, 2026, towards the end of the year, is called Calm Down, Power Up.
Yes, tell us all about it, Rabbi.
So CALM is actually an acronym. I love acronyms. All my books and my teachings are full with acronyms, because I'm a very simple guy myself, and acronyms help me define things and understand things with my simple brain. So CALM stands for clarity, autonomy or agency, lifestyle, and multipliers. So I'll tell you each of those. Clarity means, if we understand with clarity, what is causing us to be stressed, what is causing us to feel burnt out, what is sapping us of our energy, that's the first step. Once we get clarity over that, it's the first step to overcoming and vanquishing those scourges which attack so many of us. So that's the first thing. Gartner in 2023 did a study, and they concluded that $8.8 trillion a year is lost to the global GDP because people are disengaged from their work. They're unproductive, they're quiet quitting, and that is a huge, huge epidemic of quiet quitting.
Yes.
$8.8 billion. So how do you deal with that burnout? How do you deal with feeling disengaged and disinterested with the work that you do, which takes up most of your waking hours? And the answer is, the first step is C, clarity. The second step is agency. To realize that the things that you think are overwhelming you, causing you stress, causing you burnout, you are not a victim of those things. You can control your reality. That's agency. Agency says you're driving the bus. You're not being driven by some circumstance outside of yourself. The L stands for lifestyle. And lifestyle, there's several pillars in lifestyle that are small little tweaks that you can make that help you, that give you huge dividends. And they include what I call sleep and reap. So getting good quality sleep every night, 8 hours, good quality sleep, uninterrupted sleep, that you reap the benefits from that. So that's one section of the lifestyle section. The second section is food is mood, because there's a whole psychonutrition, a whole area of science called psychonutrition, brand new area of science that sees that the food that we eat impacts our mental well-being. So food is mood, that's number two. Number three is connection is protection. When we need connection with other human beings. We live in an AI world where you can have a beautiful discussion with AI, very productive. We deal with the world of remote work, etc. But it is so vitally important for human to human connection, H2H connection. And that connection is your protection from a mental health standpoint. So that's the third pillar. Another pillar is sun is fun. Getting out into nature, taking a nature walk amongst trees, getting vitamin D on your skin. That's like really so important for your mood. That's why people suffer from something called SAD, seasonally adjusted what's it called, depression, and that is that in our northern climates, where I live in Canada, we don't get too many summer months, so there's not enough sun. So I sit under a lamp, a therapy lamp, in the winters, so that I can at least trick my body into thinking it's getting sun. Sun is very, very important. Being out in nature is very important. And then, and this is why I've gone in this long description of my book, to answer your question, the final pillar in the lifestyle section is called less screen, more serene. And that means unplugging from that little thing that we carry around in our pocket, and from the screens and the technology that we see, and going back to what we were saying before about that digital Sabbath, to put that in, to make sure that your phone doesn't sleep in the same bedroom as you. You have to, just like a child, they like to sleep with their parents, but you have to put them at a certain point in another room, and make sure, you buy yourself a cheap little alarm clock, one of those things that you wind up, and let that wake you up in the morning, and make sure that your cell phone, your smartphone, is in another room. That's the smart thing to do with a smartphone. That way it doesn't tempt you first thing in the morning to grab it and to hijack your day. So that's the L, and then the M in calm is the multipliers. So those are small little levers that you can pull that make all the other things that much more powerful. So that's my latest book, which, as I said, should come out towards the end of this year. It's called Calm Down, Power Up.
And your first book, please, freestyle, rant, give the sermon, tell us about your first book.
Yeah, the first book is just, I got so much pleasure from that book. It took me 8 years to write, 8 years. And it was, and it's all, I did some research, but mostly I did me-search. What's me-search? Me-search is when I read something that seemed interesting, I tried it myself. If it worked and it helped me and the evidence said that it's good, it got into the book. So the book is called Stress Less, Prosper More. And it's a book about how to conquer financial anxiety and invite abundance into your life. And for 3 days, it was the #1 selling book on Amazon. Today, it's now the number 100 millionth selling book on Amazon. It dropped. It had a precipitous fall, but it had a precipitous fall. But still, it's what gives me so much joy with that book is that people who read it come back to me and tell me the impact that it's had on their life, that it has literally been life-changing for them. And when I hear that, it is so emotional for me. It is so meaningful for me to know that I could help somebody else, that I could bring comfort to a person who's anxious. Because let me tell you, anxiety is horrible. It is a horrible enemy. And I am anxiety. I like to say I'm anxiety's worst enemy, because I've devoted 8 years to writing the book, and a year and a half now since the book's been published, to combating anxiety and fear. Fear stands for false evidence appearing real.
Just to pause for a moment there. Fear can stand for one of the wise Rabbi Jackson's acronyms. To say it loud and clear, fear stands for
the great acronym. It's false evidence appearing real. Do you know?
Amen.
Do you know how much joy, excitement, and fulfillment is robbed from humanity every single day because we are afraid to enter into that relationship, afraid to start that business, afraid to tell somebody that you love them, afraid to have that difficult conversation. And what does that fear do? It holds us back. I mentioned before that, I lived in Australia for several years. Australia has beautiful climate, very warm. And then my family moved to Toronto, Canada, right? And Toronto has, for a couple of months, beautiful weather, but a lot of the year, the weather is not so good. It's very cold. And when I arrived in Toronto, it was before COVID. It was in 2018, 2019 that we arrived, late 2018. And there were weather reports. And let me tell you what the weather reports would say. They would say, there will be so many inches of snow tomorrow. That's all they said, so many inches of snow. Then COVID happened. And I don't know if it's related to COVID, if it's just coincidental, but throughout COVID, there was a lot of fear everywhere. There was medical fear, of course. There was fear of job security. Businesses were taxed very heavily during COVID. It was a very difficult period of time, tremendous fear in the world. And for some, I think a vestige of that is today, if you look at a simple thing, a trivial thing, like a weather forecast here in Toronto. Now, let me tell you a little secret. Please don't tell anybody. This is just between you and me and anybody who listens to this. The next winter in Toronto, my prediction is it will snow. At least once. Now, don't go telling that too loud, right? So when it does snow, this is what the weather report's going to say. It's going to say, warning, snow. Listen to how fearful the language has become. 8 years ago, when I came to Toronto, more than 9 years almost ago, when they said there will be snow, that's all they said. Today they say, warning, there will be snow. Why use that fear-inducing language? And that's because the media, social media, more traditional media, they have one responsibility. That is to their shareholders. And the way that they make money is by getting you afraid enough to look and engage with their product, okay? And so they are making simple things like it will snow tomorrow, which in Toronto is not a big deal. Some places, if that happened in Australia, that would be a warning. But if it happens in Toronto, we're geared up for it. It happens every single winter. So therefore, we're going to say, so making it frightening will gain you eyeballs and will help their bottom line. And therefore, everything has become so frightening in this world. So I wrote Stress Less, Prosper More to deal with that. Don't be afraid. Don't let fear rob you of the magnificent life that you can have. You know, go out there, be adventurous, do things that push your boundaries, that push your comfort zone a little bit, because on the other side of fear is the greatness that you can become.
Oh, incredible. I know time is of the essence, and you're a very busy guy, and you don't, but surely you spend 3 hours a day wasting your time on TikTok. You have to admit, at least 3-4 hours every day. You have to, Rabbi, please. Admit it. Admit it to the audience. Admit it to the world.
I may or may not. I won't admit it, though. But I will tell you one thing, that if you want serene, then you need to be less screen. And that certainly applies to, now I'm not saying total abstinence. If you want to scroll, social media and that, set a timer. Set a timer. Make it like, okay, I know that I'm really have low energy between this time and this time every day. So I'm going to put aside 25 minutes where I can just veg out and doom scroll on social media. And I'm going to set an alarm. I've scheduled it. Now that you've scheduled it, it's an intentional. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think then it's restorative. It's your recovery. It will help you come back. But if you're not intentional about it, if it just happens, something triggers you, you're bored, or you're afraid, you're anxious, and that's what triggers it. And then 3 hours later, you're looking at properties in Kazakhstan or something that are for sale. Then you kind of need to, that's where it's destructive. So I think you can have this and serenity, but it has to be without screens.
Amazing.
I mean,
No, this was so incredible. And with your
yeah, thanks.
permission, can this just go out live to the world, raw and unedited, right away? So anyone
Let's
who's
do it.
struggling.
I'm not going to be afraid of that. Shoot it out there.
And we ask one last question while we have you for one last minute?
Sure.
Why should we study the Talmud and Torah? Is that a waste of time?
It is not a waste of time. I wish you would have asked me this question before, because I have a lot to say on this. But let me try and be brief. It is the antidote to the algorithm. So out there in the world, social media has algorithms which have been developed by brilliant people, teams of thousands of brilliant people, to get you basically hooked and go that doom scrolling route. But one of the ways that the algorithm does it is it tries to figure out what you believe. What are your beliefs? And it will feed you stories and images and audio and video that supports your belief. And so I think the danger of this is that we're becoming highly fragmented, polarized in society, and we're losing the ability to have exchange of ideas, to debate ideas in a respectful manner. And I think that learning Talmud is an extremely difficult and taxing process. You have to engage your brain. And our brains are very lazy. Our brains like to just, sip pina colada on some beach front somewhere. That's what the brain likes to do. One of its primary functions is to preserve energy, because if we expend all our energy, that's a huge emergency. So the brain is very lazy by design, and that's what keeps us alive. But when you study Talmud, it forces you to think very deeply, very many layers, to look at two sides of an issue and truly understand with great depth what both of those sides are saying. And that depth, where you try and understand an idea from various approaches to that idea, I think that's an art that we as humanity are losing. And I think that one of the benefits of learning Talmud is that it brings it back. But I think the most important benefit of learning Talmud is that it's God's wisdom. It's a godly wisdom. And so therefore, there is no other method that people have to connect with something that is more profound than when you connect intellectually with something. Connecting intellectually with something means that thing is a part of you. It becomes a part of your thought processes, your mindset. And so when one studies Talmud, one is studying how God thinks. And therefore, it changes the way that we think to become more divine. Much more.
I know that time is of the essence, and you are the busiest man in the world, perhaps. Is it possible we could call you back and waste another 45 minutes of your life on another?
I would love to do that.
Amazing. So we will pause here, and the future will behold pure wisdom will come back again, and amazing. Oh, I'm gonna watch this myself 20 times. And a final thought: could we throw in a quote from a holy text to people who are struggling and need words of wisdom?
A quote from a holy text. I have a quote from my book.
Even better, but a personalized, filtered.
But let me think of it. So in terms of like quotes that really inspire me, any quote from the Bible which speaks about placing your trust in God speaks to me, because I think we take upon way too much on our shoulders as people, and so therefore when I read passages which say Hashlech al Hashem v'hu yichal kalecha in the original Hebrew, which means throw your burden on God and he'll take care of things for you. I think, those things are very comforting for me.
Okay, we will pause here and eagerly awaiting a second such episode. Amazing. Rabbi Jax, we will let you return to your incredible work on go-to-market strategy and business therapy and rabbinical lessons, explosive wisdom coming out, and authorship of books to be continued. Amazing. Kenya Ratzon.
I'm looking forward to our next chat. Thank you.
Amazing. Take care, Rabbi Jax. A beautiful day ahead of you.
Cheers. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.